Hi there, and welcome to another review. Today's film is Amateur, directed by James Hawks and starring Rami Malek. Marketed as a tightly wound espionage thriller, Amateur promised a return to the gritty, paranoia-driven spy dramas of old, with the added pressure of a ticking clock narrative and a story about vengeance, obsession, and ordinary people stepping into extraordinary danger. The big question is, does Amateur live up to its potential as a tense, character-driven thriller, or does it collapse under the weight of spy cliches? Let's break it down. Quick heads up, my reviews are not spoiler free. Sometimes I skim, other times I may go full spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is your spoiler warning. With the spoiler warning out of the way, let's talk about the setup. The film opens in London, where CIA cryptographer Charles Heller, played by Rami Malek, lives a quiet life far from the fieldwork of traditional spies. That changes in an instant when a devastating terrorist attack claims the life of his wife, and consumed by grief and rage, Charles demands that the CIA hunt down those responsible. But the bureaucracy and red tape stall any meaningful action. Desperate, Charles takes matters into his own hands. Armed with only his intellect, a few connections, and an iron determination, he manipulates his way into field training, forcing his agency to let him track down the perpetrators. But as Charles digs deeper into the murky world of espionage, he discovers not only the true identities of the terrorists, but also a web of corruption, betrayal, and moral compromises within his own government. The deeper he goes, the more he realizes he might not be ready for the game he's entered, because in a spy world, amateurs don't last long. Let's talk about the positives. Pro number one would have to be Rami Malek's performance. Malek gives a strong, nuanced performance as Charles. He sells the grief, the paranoia, and the determination in a way that makes the character believable as both a desk analyst and a reluctant man of action. His physicality may not scream action hero, but that works in the film's favor. He feels like a genius tech everyman who's in over his head. The movie consistently plays with, will he be able to actually kill anyone? And this happens throughout the movie. And yes, eventually he crosses that line, but in a manner that he is good at, through tech and a considerable amount of planning. Another positive that I gather from this movie is the old school spy atmosphere. The film thrives when it leans into its grounded espionage vibes. You know, when it comes to coded exchanges, double agent, the constant sense that Charles can't trust anyone makes for some good tension. The cinematography favors muted tones, smoky interiors, which add to the sense of paranoia and danger. Unlike many modern spy thrillers that lean heavily on gadgets and more so explosive set pieces, Amateur keeps its focus on human cost. The story of a grieving husband turning into a field operative by grief and seeking revenge adds a personal, emotional weight that carries this film forward. Now to the negatives. Number one would have to be the familiar beats. As gripping as the setup is, the film often falls back into familiar spy thriller tropes. The double cross, the you can't trust the agency subplots, and the chase through crowded streets or buildings. If you've seen films like any of the Bourne movies, Mission Impossible, or 007 films, you'll probably be familiar with many of this movie's story beats, but done better in those other films and with better material for its supporting cast, but more on its supporting cast a bit later. The second negative would have to be the uneven pacing. Additionally, the film sometimes struggles to balance character-driven drama with thriller momentum. The first act builds tension well, and the wife is suddenly killed. You learn about the CIA cover-ups, and this leads Charles confronting the director of the CIA. The middle drags as Charles plays catch-up and learns the identities of the four assailants responsible for his wife's death. Then the third act accelerates into overdrive, cramming in revelations and action with off-screen planning that feel rushed compared to the slow burn starts. Ultimately, this film can be a bit of a drag in certain sections of the film, especially if you were looking for more action or spy substance. As it stands now, the film could have been improved if more than 30 plus minutes of it were cut out and instead used to highlight Charles' ability to think ahead while relying upon his tech to outsmart those trying to stop him. The last negative, or the last con that I wanted to talk about, is the supporting cast is underused. With regard to the supporting cast, while Malek shines, the supporting characters, including seasoned agents, informants, and antagonists, don't get nearly enough depth. Their motivations are often left vague, and they serve more as moving pieces in Charles' story rather than compelling individuals in their own rights. And I'm looking at you, John Berthel and Lawrence Fishburne, two actors who I had high hopes for coming into this film that are criminally underutilized. So we've talked about the positives and the negatives. Let's now talk about some of the key takeaways of this film. Key takeaway number one, grief can be a dangerous motivator. At its heart, Amateur is less about espionage, more about what grief can drive someone to do. Charles' transformation shows what knowledge, obsession, and the desire for revenge and its ability to collide with institutional power can turn into if left unchecked. The second key takeaway is spy thrillers work best when they're grounded. The film succeeds most when it focuses on the quiet, tense moments, decoding messages, tailing a suspect, or questioning loyalties, instead of when it tries to play up to something it's not. That is an action spy thriller, as the film lacks in all three departments. In the end, Amateur is at times a tense, somber spy thriller that thrives on Rami Malek's performance and his grounded approach to espionage. While it suffers from familiar beats, uneven pacing, and thin supporting roles, it still manages to deliver an emotionally charged story about loss and vengeance. Grief can definitely be a dangerous motivator, and for me, this movie lands at 3 out of 5 stars. A decent, well-acted thriller that doesn't fully reinvent the genre, but still offers enough tension and heart to be worth the watch. What about you? Did Amateur pull you into its paranoid world, or did it feel too predictable? Did you prefer the book in which this movie is based on? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Film Sense with Brian.